For more than a decade, FTI has strived to become the leader in the aftermarket performance transmission and converter industry. We've joined forces with McLeod driveline components under the leadership of Top Fuel Funny Car pilot Paul Lee, and now have a larger distribution network, more resources, and more power. Come see us in the pits and ask how you can join the FTI family. It's not cheating, it is the competitive edge.
Foggit is a high-performance fogging oil designed especially for internal combustion engines. Foggit can be used by everyone. If you have a lawnmower, a jet ski, a motorcycle, a tractor, a high-performance car, a classic car, racing vehicles, if it has a cylinder wall, it needs Foggit.
This is WFO Radio.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Another week of WFO Radio. I'm Joe Castello. Welcome. We just finished up the Route 66 NHRA Nationals out there at Route 66 Raceway, Peak Performance, Gerber Collision and Glass. Skag was in the house. It was amazing. What a great day. Saturday was a blowout. Sunday, great crowd. Friday, it was good. We had a good event, and I think the best news that came out of all of it is that we found out that we're going to be back next year and the year after, from what I understand. So super exciting how it all went down. The GETTRX Pro Stock All-Star Call-Out was amazing. That thing, it worked out, right? The high drama, the intensity, the little bit of aggravation, some upsets, Erica taking Greg like we predicted. Amazing, amazing event. And the race fans in Chicago are just first class. They loved it. They showed out, and it was great. We're gonna hear from Dallas Glenn on the show, along with the voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart, going to recap the event. His birthday was yesterday. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into all of it, right? Matt Hagan, 2 in a row. That is a huge deal. Matt Hagan, jumped on the scene now, and he got his first win. He got a second win, back-to-back. Good running for Hagan. John Force makes the final round as he had to put the team on his back, Peak Performance on his back, and carry it right to the final round. Good effort by Force. Antron Brown gets his first win of the season, AB, getting the job done for his 75th career victory. We already mentioned Dallas, and Gaige Herrera. And Gaige is going to join us tomorrow. Those of you who watch every WFO show, the next one in the archive after this one will feature Matt Hagan. It will feature Gaige Herrera, and it's going to feature John Vincent. That's right. John Vincent is on the show. And you guys, do you know who John Vincent is? You probably don't. John Vincent is the guy who sung the national anthem and held that note for 5 minutes. How do you hold a note for 5 minutes? He normally sings for the Cubs. First experience at the NHRA. Had no idea what it was. Agreed to do it. Sight unseen. Yeah, something. I'll do something. And fell in love with the sport in 2 minutes. And is now like a crazy drag racing fan from 1 second to the next. Went home, watched it with his dad, told all his friends. He called me on Monday morning, was blown away by his experience. Like you'd figure an intelligent person would be blown away and shocked by what we experience on a regular basis. So we're going to get into all of that this week on WFO Radio. First, let me tell you about the people who make it possible, like Bernie's Speed Shop, BURNYZZ.com, Bernie's. They're located in Ocala, Florida. They do frame-off restorations, everything automotive. Bernie's. They're buying, they're selling. They've got a dealership. They sell on consignment, like their social media. That's really the starting point. Of course, you can give them a call. This is Josh Hart's home company, Bernie's Speed Shop, Bernie's.com. CWT Industries. I got so much feedback from the Randy Neal interview 2 weeks ago. Randy Neal comes on the show, follows up Matty Gordon. I'm thinking, oh my God, hard turn, right? From the enthusiasm of Matty's first win to balance machines. So much positive feedback on CWTindustries.com. If you've got a machine shop, you've got an old school balancer in there, time to update. Go to CWTindustries.com, check them out, or send me an email, joe@WFOradio.com, and we'll put you together. Phillips Connect as well, Smart Trailer Technology on board with WFO Radio. Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology. We're getting ready to drop a new episode of Hidden Horsepower, but make them your first call, not your last call. If you're having an engine built, inquire with your engine builder. Like, hey, what kind of rings are you going to use? Because like Reinhart was joking with Hartford last week, there are a lot of people that are kind of in that old school groove. Oh yeah, they work. Yeah, the same ring package that I've been using my whole career. Not good enough anymore, guys. Not good enough. TotalSeal.com. The folks at Foggett, I just got off the phone with Gary Stinnett talking a little bit about various parts of Project Pontiac. And the Foggett train continues to roll. Everywhere I go, I see the logo. But beyond drag racing, we need to grow the brand. Those of you out there who want to support the show, get yourself a can of Foggett, put it to work. It works to protect the inside of your cylinders. And we're finding out so many other things, including those of you who are enthusiasts in firearms. Very, very interesting. Later on in the show, we'll tell you about Marvin Rodak. We'll tell you about Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School. We'll tell you about samtech.edu and how to become a Patreon. But right now, let's bring on the voice of the NHRA, who I know is retweeting on X right now. He's retweeting on X right now. But he is the birthday boy. And I didn't know, Alan. Thank goodness you told me on the Winter Circle stage, because I always, like, if we're not going to Kansas, you don't have a birthday. Like, that's the way it works, right? Like, Reinhart doesn't have a birthday because there's no Kansas this year, so there's no birthday. But you're like, tomorrow's my birthday. And everybody, how great were they? They sung happy birthday to you.
Yeah, the fans were terrific. That was very nice. That was touching. I was hoping that they were all going to give me cards that had money in them, but yeah, I didn't get any of those.
I walked off the stage. That didn't happen? Oh, man, I figured we had set the table appropriately for them to hand you cash.
I did get an email from a guy that said, "Hey, man, I was going to send you $500 for your birthday, but apparently you don't take Apple Pay, so maybe next year." Damn it! That's what I
burn. Exactly. You're an Android guy.
In the grand scheme of, I mean, everybody wants to do, something special, something fun, something nice for your birthday. So I decided that I would let myself sleep in instead of taking the dark 30 flight, which would have had me on a plane in Chicago a couple minutes after 5 and home at 8 a.m. or I think it's 8:26, whatever. I decided, you know what? Sunday night, I knew I was going to watch the All-Star race, the NASCAR All-Star race, have a beer, have a nice dinner. I thought, I'm just going to sleep in. So I'll take the flight that doesn't leave until like 11 a.m. Well, that one was delayed for a few hours, and then I missed my connection. So another few hours. And so I finally got home last night. It was about 8 o'clock p.m. But yeah, it was just a wildly exciting birthday. Sitting around the airport, twiddling my thumbs, watching Ted Lasso on my computer, reading a book, just what everybody dreams of to celebrate the birthday. I had a buddy here in town that was going to take me to happy hour last night. I got home too late for that. So I'll just have to reschedule it, I guess.
Well, exactly, because I don't really believe in birthdays anymore. It's more of like a birth week or a birth week and a half, however long it takes to get all of those scheduled events in. The happy hour can be extended until later on this week. And I think, but here on WFO, Monica is saying, happy birthday. Everybody is saying happy birthday. Eddie from Garofalo's in Charlotte is saying happy birthday. So
Thank
you got
you.
a lot of, they have beer at the airport, says the Yeti. So we got
True.
a bunch of people out
True.
there saying happy birthday.
Yeah, me, Tony Stewart, Tommy DeLago. I'm not sure who else in the NHRA family, but I know the three of us.
Randy Glady.
Randy Glady, too?
I believe so. I just saw a happy birthday Randy Glady that appeared to be from yesterday. And so I'm guessing it was yesterday for Randy Glady from Skag, which is, that's a lot of people on that day.
Yeah, I did not know that, but hey, the more the merrier, right? As long as everybody likes beer and cake, then I think we'll get along just fine.
Birthdays are the best. We got to celebrate. Mine is in January, of course, so we're not like out on the tour, and it's whatever. It is what it is. And I share my birthday with Josh Friedman, FDR, and Corey McClanahan.
It is an absolute proven fact that birthdays are the healthiest thing you can do, because the more birthdays you have, the longer you live. It has been proven over and over and over again.
Crazy. Wow. Things you learn on WFO Radio. I want to ask everybody out there who's watching live on X doing a great job of sharing the fact that we're live each week. And if you want to help the show, if you like us enough, if you like NHRA Drag Racing, maybe you hate me personally, but you like the sport, we ask you to repost. We're going to try to entertain your followers with this program. And we got Dallas Glenn coming on. So let's start off with a little bit of pro stock, Alan. Dallas won the race. Greg Anderson won the call out. KB Titan won the weekend. And, there's a lot of layers. There was a lot of chirping. Hartford made that prediction about round one with John DeFlorian. We covered that story so well here, but it just high level pro stock entertainment all weekend long.
I think entertainment is a perfect word for it. I love the fact that Erica did call out Greg. to start the GETTRX call out, right? I mean, hey, if that's who you believe the biggest threat is, get him out of here. We've seen Robert Hight take that track in the last couple of years. Now, for Erica, unfortunately for her, it didn't work, and Greg went on to win it. But I do think that's bold strategy. And I think Erica's obviously not afraid to race anybody. So to get him out there first and to try to get him out of there, I applaud that. I also like, you call it chirping. I think that's good words for it. Some of the stuff that was going back and forth between them, because I've always contended you need to get the fans involved. If Joe and I are racing each other and nobody cares, then nobody cares. But if Joe and I are racing each other and people have a favorite, right? Pick a side. If you're on Team Erica, you want to see that Hendrick car go down. I mean, down. And if you're on Team Greg, you'd like to see that red car packed up before lunchtime. But you care about the race. You're interested in it. You're going to watch. You're going to cheer for your favorite. And that's important. And it's turned into a team deal. And what Erica said at the end of the racetrack, about, show us your credentials. And I chirped back at her just a little bit there. She sent me a note at the end of the day and she said, hey, I was talking about Hartford. She said, not some of those others. She said, I understand what KB got. She said, I was talking to Matt. So if I missed that, then my apologies to Erica and the elite team. But I love the fact that there's a little trash talking going back and forth. That, the fans understand that not everybody gets out at the end of the racetrack and hugs each other. That's important. You need to have rivalries. You need to have a reason for the fans to care. And I think, when we saw it over the past, 5, 6, 8, 10 years, if elite gets on a run, that just really chews at the KB guys. They go back to the dyno room. They go back, they go testing, they go to get back to get even. And right now, KB looks to have the upper hand. They certainly have on Sundays anyway. And I guarantee you that's just making the elite team hungrier and hungrier and hungrier to come out there and crack them at the next race. So good on everybody. If the drivers get out of the car and it don't seem like they care, then you're not going to make the fans care. If the drivers get out of the car and care, you're going to make the fans care. And I'm 100% for it.
Yeah, I agree. I was proud of Erica for doing something interesting. It was interesting the way she did it. It was interesting. She picked Greg. Also, the way I'm looking at it is there's the least downside to losing to Greg. He's, arguably the greatest of all time. He's a 5-time champ. He's got 105 win. He's Greg Anderson. A lot of people have lost to Greg Anderson. Erica can come right back. And it's not a blemish in any way to call out Greg Anderson for the entertainment of our sport and get beaten. That there's no shame in that game. It's Greg Anderson. And then Greg goes on and he gets the job done and he wins the $40,000. And the John DeFlorian run,
just one more real
Yes.
quick thing on the call out. Even in the second round, when TJ was the lone elite car to advance,
yes.
Greg had low ET and he had the call out, and his words were, there's only one of the bad guys left, right? Or one of the enemies left.
Yes.
I'm taking TJ. Even though both Matt and Derek Kramer, who also advanced, didn't make nearly as good runs. So Greg then called out what appeared to be the second best car and went on to victory. But no, I'm like I said, I'm 100% for that. Just let's keep it going.
As long as nobody pulls a Stenhouse. Right. Like, I just don't want to see, look, all of our ignition show last night was about that topic. And I understand I feel slightly different. Like Cameron Evans sent me a text and he's like, Stenhouse is a punk, but it's fun. And it is kind of fun to talk about it. I don't want to see any of my friends doing that to each other. Hopefully they can just keep it verbal, right? Like smart aleck comments are the way of the world. Look at Brian Lones. Well, he's made it so far. Like all of us, yourself, myself, without, just little witty comments like Greg, the enemies, the bad guys, good guys, bad guys, white hats, black hats, except everybody's the good guy in their own movie.
But drag racing is a non-contact sport. So I certainly can understand being a little more upset if somebody sticks me in the wall a second lap of a 200 lap race than if somebody hangs me out 6 seconds on the starting line. So I agree with what you're saying, but I also think that, I think Stenhouse probably gained a bunch of fans for doing that because there are
the right target. That's for sure.
Well, there are NASCAR fans out there that are not fans of either Kyle or the Busch brothers, one or the other. And if they didn't, if Stenhouse maybe wasn't one of their guys, I bet he is now. And, you need some kind of rivalry. And If the guy throws a punch, the guy throws a punch. But
well, I don't want, I hope our friends don't do that.
No, but again, we don't have, Greg's not going to run Erica into the wall or vice versa. So,
right.
And if one of them did, then I think that there would be more than just a little chirping down at the end of the racetrack.
Yeah, now that you mention it, probably. All right, let's bring on our guest. He got the job done. He went back to back at Route 66 Raceway. He has dominated the facility since it has returned to the schedule. Mr. Dallas Glenn. What's up, Dallas? How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. We're congratulating you on another win at Route 66 Raceway. Pretty amazing how you have been able to lock this place down since we returned.
Yeah, it sometimes there's just tracks that kind of agree with you, and Chicago seems to be one of those for me. There's some tracks that every driver, even though they may not dislike the facility, they just the luck never falls their way, and some tracks it's kind of the opposite.
Exactly. Fans of Pro Stock, we ask you to repost the show, share, retweet, wherever you are, whatever social, however you're watching. Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn, let's get it out there. Alan, what's your question for Mr. D?
Well, Dallas, Friday night weather conditions dictated the majority of the qualifying field. The weather was just better, so the cars had more power. Saturday morning on the hot racetrack, it looked like there was a lot of head scratching going on down there. What was going on that made it so different or so finicky for the Pro Stock car Saturday morning during Q1 and, of course, the first round of the call-out?
I know that I think Saturday it definitely felt different out there. I know the weather was quite a bit different. They were still kind of relearning, the track. I think it made a pretty big swing from Friday to Saturday, even though the evening session was better as far as track conditions go. It was definitely a little bit on the difficult side to figure it out. I feel like everybody should have been a little faster than we were on Saturday. Even though the air was a little bit worse, we didn't think it was that much worse. So it was definitely a little confusion there. And then it's just fresh green racetrack and trying to relearn how to do everything.
Joe, if I can just follow up real quick. You mentioned fresh green racetrack. A lot of the Nitro guys made comments, the track specialists, that because the track is not active all the time, that just makes it different, right? I mean, we only go every place once a year, but the tracks that run a full series seem to respond better when we come into town. Does Pro Stock guys find that too, or is that just a Nitro phenomenon?
Oh, no. I mean, I think any car that goes down the track should notice something like that. I mean, obviously, when a track's being raced on every single week, it's getting fresh rubber put on it. It's getting fresh glue put on it. It's getting scraped and taken care of. And when a track just sits there for a year and then you go and scrape it off and then try to put rubber back down, even though you are putting, you're scraping most of it off and putting it down, it's just, it never seems to respond the same. So as the weekend went on, felt like the rubber got fresher, the track did get better. They were kind of panicking before that Q1 run because the numbers we were getting on the track were nowhere near what we were expecting them to be, and they were kind of like backtracking and trying to figure out what to do, and it was making big swings. So we were a little bit lost there. And then we come after a full day of sportsman racing and pros, and you come back on Saturday and you have more sportsmen before us, and just track conditions change pretty rapidly.
I would think that, you got to learn, right? Like, this track is going to be a track that is like what Alan described. The next time it gets used heavily will be at this event next year. I mean, hopefully there'll be a divisional event. Hopefully there will not be the case, but it's got to be, like an evolution on how to handle that situation. That having been said, I found it to be a very interesting and intriguing race. You had to run Eric Latino. You're, part owner of KB Titan Racing in round one, coming out of the 7 hole. You dropped that 56 and everybody went, ooh, that was very impressive.
Yeah, the 56 in the semis, I'm still, I feel like possibly NHRA might have been fighting a lazy photo cell in the right lane. Obviously, we saw Sean Langdon run that 76, I think it was, and he was like 130 on the tree with an 809 60 foot. So, I knew it was definitely a good run there in the semis against Greg, but I feel like maybe I might have been a little bit, maybe 100th or so better on the tree, and maybe the run was actually more like a 57. I don't think it had any outcome to any racing or lane choice or anything like that. I think Aaron went a 60 in that one. So, but I feel like, we with the changes we made, I didn't see any reason for it to go from 998 and 60 foot the run before to 980 on that one. And so that's why I was kind of a little skeptical on actually running that 56. But then the 56 we ran in the final, it was definitely a true 56. I feel like I believe that as the day went on, we kind of started getting the car better and better. And, as far as running 56 first round, I feel like with what the air was compared to qualifying, that's what we should have ran. If anything, we were expecting Greg and Erica and, Troy and Jaggy and all them to go 55 or 54. And it just seemed like nobody kind of picked up like they were supposed to. Erica went a 56.5 and I went 56.6. And I'm not saying that my run was bad or anything, but correction numbers wise, it really wasn't a whole lot different from the 60 that I ran on Q4. And so it was kind of odd that nobody kind of picked up what we thought they should.
Alan?
Dallas, as long as you've been around and from watching Pro Stock before you got involved with it, does it fascinate you that you can sit now and look at the weather, look at the track and go, okay, we should run 56, or we didn't really run 56. We think we ran 57, or somebody should have run. I mean, I remember when I was a kid watching Pro Stock, and yes, I know that was 100 years before you were a kid watching Pro Stock, but guys had trouble predicting like within a tenth or a half a tenth. Does it fascinate you that it has become that far that you can literally sit down and figure within a hundredth or a half a hundredth what you should run and whether or not you made a good run or a bad run?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first run of the weekend might throw, a question into it. You won't be as accurate on like, Q1, you go up there and you can be like, oh, well, we should be somewhere, 55-ish or something. And you might go up there and go, everybody, number one's a 58 or something. Maybe everybody just missed it. But, after 4 qualifying runs, you've had 4 runs of the weather, 4 runs at the track. You usually can get it pretty close. And then from there, as you go, it's like, well, how good can we get it? And, running 56 there in the final was, we thought that was a pretty decent run. 57, 58 there in the semis was also decent. If you look at one run that kind of impressed me was Greg's first pair out, second round, and he goes that 58-1. And, that was a pretty impressive one to me. He took lane choice from me. It ended up biting him a little bit because, Jerry Tucker had his, I think his foot came up a little bit there in the first pair of of the semis. And that kind of threw everybody into a spiral there, kind of freaking out because, you've got one car that made a nice clean run in the left. So they wanted to put Greg over there in the nice clean rubber. And especially because, anytime a car leaves without a 2-step like that, it usually tears the rubber up pretty bad on the starting line. So they stuck me over there and it happened to stick and make a nice clean run. And it was good enough. And Greg said he went a little bit left and he said he was so mad at the crew chiefs for sticking him in the left lane when he's going down there and he sees that a car length out in front of him. And I think he was saying some not very friendly words in there.
I love hearing that. I was right in front of him, like boom, swap. I was like, they're doing a lane swap, and we get to play the music, which is the fun part. Talk about the final. You and Aaron, 2 like cut from the same cloth kind of guys, right? Coming up, bracket racing, sportsman racers, running pro stock, living your, young racer dreams. He had that, nuclear level explosion a little bit earlier in the day, which was just crazy. I think we felt it. They got it on the Richter scale somewhere. NORAD was probably tracking it, but he's 28, you're 26, he's 58, you're 56, you win the race. But preparing for Aaron, he had a shot to double, made 2 finals in FX. His dad got him too. That's always a big race.
Yeah, knowing that he had the FX race right before, I knew that not only is he going to be, he had an extra shot at the tree right before, but he's also, he was just denied on that one. So I know he's going to come back in this next one extra hungry. So I knew I had to go up there and try to be as good as I can on the tree. And, these cars we go up there and, we a lot of people cut lights, but it's extremely difficult to cut a light in one of these cars. You think they react quick, but that tree it's fast, and it doesn't take long before we're both staged before it comes on, and you have to be ready. And I knew he was going to be tough, and we had just we seen that they had dropped a new engine in there for the final, and I knew I wasn't going to take him lightly. That when they're putting a new engine in, that doesn't mean anything there. If anything, he might even be faster on the next one. So I just knew I had to go up there and trust the car, go ahead and trust and try to hit the shifts as best as I can, and just hope that I come out on the right side of another good drag race, just like I did against TJ.
Alan.
Dallas, let's go off track for a minute. This is a long weekend off from the professional touring series anyway. Do you get a chance to take a day or a couple of days? I mean, you pool, barbecue, or is it all just work? Because once we get back to it, we're going to be getting pretty busy.
I don't really, I guess every now and then I might take a day to not do much, kind of wander around the house or something. But most of the time I'm doing something. There's a lot of work. We're getting ready. We go testing from time to time. We might go through our cars, make sure there's nothing loose or wrong or broken or cracked or anything like that. Make sure you don't have any glitches that surprise you. And then also I've, I want to do some racing on, some bracket racing too. So I'll probably end up working on Sadie's car some this week and try to make sure it's ready to go, because I think she's going to go run Bristol. So I want to make sure it's ready to go for Bristol.
Yeah, Craig Gaultier is out there. That's what everybody really cares about now. Sorry,
she's supposed to be running Bristol, so I'm going to try to make sure her car's good to go. I've been fighting a little glitch in that thing, so I'm going to try to get it worked out. And I don't know if I'll have her drive it this weekend, or maybe I'll drive it this weekend, or I might take my El Camino out, or both. Who knows? We'll see if I can get it figured out before the weekend. But no, sometimes I like to just go play a round of golf on Sunday too. That's always a nice, relaxing time.
All right. What about slot car racing in Troutman, North Carolina? Asks Michael. You, your wife Sadie, and Jason Line, slot car drag racing in Troutman, North Carolina. Is this a real comment?
Yeah. I have. There's a buddy of mine that owns a slot car drag racing track there in Troutman, and we go up there and slot car race every now and then. It's more bigger during the winter time when all the big cars aren't racing. They're pretty much just a big group of bracket racers that buy and build slot cars. We go and bracket race them for money and have a good time. And I do have a 70 Buick GS slot car that is made as a replica of Jason Line's Stalker. So I have a couple dragsters, and I've seen a couple people build some Dallas Glen Pro Stock cars, so that's pretty cool. Most of the ones that I've seen built are a little bit out of my price range for how much I want to spend on a slot car, but they're really detailed, and the amount of attention people put in those is pretty impressive.
Very cool.
It's funny because you just kind of brought it up, because drag racing, right? I mean, junior dragsters went from, hey, a 5-horse engine to you can spend $30,000 on one. And slot cars, you used to be able to pick up a slot car for $40 or $50 and just go have fun. And now some of those things are outrageous, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones that I see made by, I guess, like the name brand builders, I mean, they'll be auctioned for $800-900. So it's pretty impressive how much people are spending on those.
That's why you got to run for big money.
That's it.
Yeah.
Big money slot
I think
cars.
Actually it's Bo Butner owns a track there in Louisville. He has it in his shop, and he puts on the 125th scale million every year, at least the last couple of years. If they get the right car count, I think they're racing for $40,000 in slot cars.
That's just amazing.
Gary Sinnett's got one in his shop also.
Oh my gosh. Crazy. All right. We've softened you up with a bunch of softball questions. You're feeling very relaxed and comfortable. Here comes the high heat. Now, what your take on the chirping, the back and forth? You and I had a little conversation after it was all over in the winner's circle, and you had said, I really I love racing a pro stock car. I do my talking on the racetrack. That's Dallas's character. And I like that. I think you're like well liked by everybody, but just the same, you're part of this team, and this team has got a rival team out there, and the rival team, they've got their own program going on, and they will tell you. And so where do you stand on all of this? Where are we at with the chirping, and what are we going to see in the future?
I feel like both teams have people that like to chirp, and both teams have people that just love to race. And I think the ones who like to do the chirping are probably going to continue doing chirping. It's nothing new. They've been, both teams have been chirping back and forth for, how many years, at least as long as I've been out here. So I don't think it's anything new. It definitely, it seems to be ramped up a little extra this year, which is definitely good for the entertainment value. No, I think it, as far as the competition goes back and forth between the rivalry, I think it's going to do nothing but heat up as far as the season goes. I think it's going to get more intense. And, as long as, like Joe said earlier, as long as there's no Ricky Stenhouse moments, I encourage it. It's good fun, and, we can, everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Alan?
I think it's kind of like a hockey team. You've got your enforcers.
Yeah.
And that's their job to go, hey, when this comes up, you go take care of that. And then you've got your other players that, go take care of this. So it would seem to me that both sides have somebody or a couple of somebodies that are very skilled in that department. So maybe the rest of you can just go ahead and, put your head down and go to work.
Yeah, no, it's definitely there's some good times. It's good for laughs for sure. We like to have a good time out there as well. We're competing and everything, but you got to have fun while you're out here. Otherwise, if it wasn't fun, why would we be doing it? But it'd be interesting if NASCAR or NHRA tried doing some. I know there's some dirt track sanctioning bodies that they encourage. If drivers want to fight, make sure you're allowed to do it on the front stretch so that we can control it. You don't need a big brawl going on. But if you want to let two drivers fight, have at it as long as it's on the front stretch.
Okay, says Dallas Glenn. I find that to be, who is the enforcer on KB Titan? Like, I love the analogy, Alan. I think that is tremendous, right? Some people.
No, I'm just talking about from a chirping standpoint. It's like, 100%. Okay, we need somebody to go.
Well, somebody's got to. You can't just be the receiving, flack incessantly always. Like, your fans want you to stand up, and you guys have done so well on the racetrack. And the same is true. It's a mirror image. The same is true for those guys too. Right? Who are the enforcers on KB Titan?
Oh, I think that might change, any given weekend. It kind of depends on who it's, pointed at on any given weekend. Obviously, Hartford is a little more vocal than some of the other ones, and we have some, other guys on the team that might be a little more vocal, but you never know. So every now and then somebody else pipes up and has their own comment, but either way, I think everybody's entitled to their own opinions.
I like it. You're doing very well right here, Dallas. You're giving us something, but not too much. Not too much. Hey, is the whole intake manifold thing in the rearview mirror? You guys adapted in the end. It took 2 months, 6 races. Are you guys where you like the wins say yes, and the rules aren't changing according to the NHRA? Is that story to bed?
Oh no, and it's it's always you just got to keep adapting, keep renovating. Keep doing your R&D. It's definitely been a challenge. It's still a challenge. I don't know exactly where we would be if the rule change hadn't happened. I don't think we'll ever know exactly how everything would have played out. But that's in the past. So, you can't look back at that now. You just gotta keep your eyes forward, keep moving forward, keep developing, and just play within the sandbox that they give you.
Alan, final question for Dallas.
Dallas, I know you've always been a car guy. You're the clutch guy. You're the suspension guy. You're the, the guy that pulls the transmission, does the transmission. How much of an engine guy are you? When you're in the shop, do you have hands-on stuff as far as the engine side of things? Or are you basically concentrating on the cars and the other guys who take care of the horsepower?
As far as the engine stuff, I don't really get too involved with that. If I got to work on Sadie's engine, they're nice enough to let me work on it after hours. I have no problem tearing Sadie's engine down to a bare block and putting it back together on my own. I have no issues with that or anything. I worked in an engine machine shop for 5 years, so I know what I'm looking at when I look in an engine. But as far as working on pro stock engines, I just let the smarter guys with the experience take care of those. If they need help with something, if they need me to hold this or turn that or set this or, do anything while I happen to be walking by or anything, I'll be happy to help. But I kind of just let them do their own thing and trust that they give me the best thing that they can.
I love it. I love it. Leah says, Pro Stock is my favorite class. Love that both teams are matched equally. I've been listening to Rivalry since Bob Glidden and Warren Johnson. Yeah, no, it's high-level entertainment coming down the pike for us. And we're always, Pro Stock has got a little bit of a handicap compared to the nitro ranks, right? They don't burn nitro. They don't have flames shooting out of the headers. But
Aaron
it is...
tried.
Yes, he did. That explosion of the weekend goes to Pro Stock.
I gotta hand it to Aaron there. Like I guarantee you, there is no way he could see anything in that car, and there was no way he could breathe at all. I saw him get out, and you could see him coughing and rubbing his eyes. I'm sure his eyes were burning and everything, but it was the amount of smoke coming out of that thing was impressive, and to be able to keep it off of the wall and still have some sort of bearing on, okay, I haven't drifted too far. Let's get stopped as quick as we can. I don't care about being out of this. You just get it stopped, get out, get a breath of air. I hope that anything like that never happens to me. But this is drag racing on the highest level, and we're on the edge. And sometimes an engine lets go.
Yeah, very interesting. Dallas, great job as usual. Congratulations, 10th win, huge win, back-to-back. Chicago, you're double-digit Dallas now, says Lonnie out there in the chat section, and I appreciate it. You've been a great add to the sport of NHRA drag racing and Pro Stock in particular, and we'll see you in New England. Happy that Pro Stock going to be back up there, and I love having you guys on the full tour. I know that was a big debate at the end of last year, but it's just not the same when Pro Stock was taking a race off, and it's really helpful for these storylines when you're at every race, and I know we've got some really interesting times ahead, so congratulations. Look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
All right.
Good luck this weekend.
Happy birthday too, Alan.
There we go.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right. How about that? Yeah, Dallas doing very well. He's not a firebrand. He's a mellow, calm character. There are some firebrands on the team, both teams, but he tells us what's happening. And I think that's just as good, just as important. He lets you know what the status is between the two Pro Stock powerhouses. And on the Ignition Show, we had a conversation last night about all of this and, whether the call out is good or not good. And most people like it, but some don't like it. But to me, if we're going to orchestrate a story, right, this bipolar category when it comes to engine power, with all these different characters, a Greg Anderson and Erica Enders, a Matt Hartford, a Jeg Coughlin, like all of these different people, the Jerry Don Tuckers that are in there mixing it up, right? I think you have enough interesting, unique, headstrong characters to make this Pro Stock storyline, whatever it goes over the course of the rest of the season, very interesting. And those are just the forward-facing people. You don't even get to know about the people that are just under the surface, like, mixing it up and poking people in the ribs.
No, I think, the class right now is in a position where you show up at the racetrack Sunday morning and you can't just automatically go to your drag race bracket bonanza and fill out the final four and then start thinking, because there are too many good cars on both teams. And the competition starts literally from the first pair down the racetrack. And I like that for the class. The days of yore when, you knew if Bob Glidden didn't make a mistake, he was going to win, or unless Warren Johnson screwed up, he was going to win. I think that really takes a lot of the fun out of it. And it takes a lot of the interest from the casual fans out. If a casual fan goes up and goes, okay, well, we all know who's going to win this thing, so, this is a good time to go get a cheeseburger. I'd rather have the fans there not knowing who's going to win. And as I said before, picking a side. I don't care if you're on Team Elite or if you're on Team KB or if you're on Team McGahey or if you're on Team somebody. Pick a side and then root for your guy or root against the other guy or gal or whatever it may be. But pick a side and let's go. That just makes it so much more interesting. And when the competitors are willing to show that this matters to them, right? It's not like, oh, well, we lost. Who cares? We'll see you next week. That this matters to them, then I think that gets the fans even more involved. And that's important. You need to have engaged fans.
Absolutely. And John DeFlorian. All right. So Erica gets beaten on a hole shot first round with a great run. That's terrible moment for Erica, and that's a bad deal. But she's a 6-time champ. She's got 50 wins. Going to have 50 wins. For John DeFlorian, who we talked to on the show a couple of weeks ago, he's the shop manager at Jerry Haas Race Cars. He's building all of these cars. The last time he was in one of these cars was in 1991. For him to get that round win, you know, I'm going to just guess that he will agree with me. That makes his drag racing life. Like, that makes it. That's an unbelievable accomplishment for John, who everybody considers a great guy. And I am under the understanding that Mark Ingersoll went down there and gave him a big hug and said congratulations after that run, because he knew exactly what it means to a guy like John. And so even though there's a rivalry and, you know, those guys that, you know, nobody likes to lose, but sometimes you got to just acknowledge what it is for the other competitor. And for John DeFlorian, that was a huge, huge deal.
I agree. And if I'm John DeFlorian, you know, however many years from now or today, people say, you know, so you raced NHRA Pro Stock? Yeah, I did. I beat Erica. What happened after that? Doesn't matter. I beat Erica once.
Right.
That's the way I'm telling the story. I mean, I guarantee you, to this day, if you ask Jenna Haddock, you know, what was the highlight of your top fuel career? I beat Tony Schumacher once. You know, what happened after that? Didn't matter. I beat Tony Schumacher once. For that moment, I took down the reigning champion, and that's a moment that you're going to remember forever, no matter what happens after that. So, you know, the way it shook out, DeFlorian crushed the tree. Erica missed it a little bit, and that was that. You know, Erica at the top end of the racetrack said that her car was creeping into beams, and she was concerned about that and broke her concentration. But the bottom line is, his reaction time was better than hers on that run, and he beat her to the stripe on that run. And if I'm John DeFlorian, that's the way I'm telling the story for the end of time. I beat Erica at the time when she was the reigning champion. And if somebody says, what happened after that? That doesn't matter. That one time I got to do that. And, you know, circumstances be damned. It doesn't make any difference.
From what I understand, just to follow up on the story, and maybe you have new information, but I talked to Hartford on the starting line. He says they're bringing the new car to New England. And so they proved to themselves what they needed to prove with all the testing and the back and forth. And, you know, a tip of the cap to those guys, because they were on the ropes. Qualified 16th, DNQ. 3 terrible races consecutively coming into the GETTRX Pro Stock All-Star call-out. We talked to him last week. They had to be under a lot of self-induced pressure to deliver for GETTRX. And they got to the final round of the GETTRX call-out. They got some TV time. They got that big round win with the second car. Like, Hartford ends up, getting bounced first round. But still, I would call it a get-off-the-ropes weekend for those guys.
Well, there comes times when you just have to prove it. You just have to prove it. No matter how much you know this is the problem or this isn't the problem, you have to prove it. And it's happened time and time again. I mean, you know, years ago when I was doing this stuff, we had gone out and run, you know, our 2 best engines, our 3 best engines, and the car still wasn't. And we know it's not horsepower. We know it's not horsepower. We know it's the car. Well, how do you prove that? Well, Ron Krischer was kind enough to loan us one of his engines. And it was a Monday after the race, took the engine out of his car and put it in our car. And guess what? We were slow. But we proved it. You know, now we can stop second guessing. Well, could it really be the engine? And when you're dealing with a situation like that, and Matt said from the get-go, he said, I know there's nothing wrong with the car. I know the car's fine. I know that's not the problem. But you have to prove it. And putting the 2 of them side by side on the same racetrack, and yes, somebody say, well, John DeFlorian still qualified 16th, so what did you really prove? Remember, John didn't get a clean run down the racetrack on Friday. So to make just a couple of runs, and then you can go back and go same day, same track conditions, I think same lane once. Here's this run. It's not the car. Okay. So what we're doing going forward, it's not the car. And now you can go concentrate. And again, no matter how much you're absolutely positively sure, sometimes you just got to prove it. And I think they did. Got to
prove it. No, absolutely. All right. A lot of pro stock talk. Love pro stock, obviously, and hopefully, you know, like the people will catch on and enjoy it. But look, you know, the people who leave the grandstands, right? Like the people who are left, that's still a big crowd for drag racing, and they are getting to appreciate what they love. But let's talk Top Fuel 22. Top Fuelers, the Brittany Force DNQ, big story at the peak race. And John Force goes out there and, you know, he goes to the final round. It was as if he was energized by it. That's tough for Brittany. a streak. She had a very long streak of qualifying, but that's the state
I think
of
it was
competition.
287 races.
Oh my gosh. That is the state of competition.
Pomona 2014. But yeah, but when you mentioned the 22 cars, okay? So what did we talk about, last week and the week before? TJ Zizzo, pencil him in. I don't know how many people had him penciled into number one, but that's where he ended up. That's a spot. Kyle Wurtzel, pencil him in. That's a spot. When you bring out these high-powered independents, and I was probably more surprised, or at least as surprised, that Christopher Baldwin didn't make it, because I figured they could go out there on Friday night just like 379, 380, and that would lock you in the field. And that didn't happen. But yeah, when you've got that many cars, somebody that you expect to be in every week is going to fall on the outside of it. And, hate it for Brittany, but, they had their 4 shots. And, Tony Stewart ended up being on the bump spot going into the final session. I believe he was in with an 87. And he obviously running early in the session because he was on the bump spot, and he stepped up 200s. And all that did was move the bump spot. And he said flat out, when he made the run, he thought, that's it, we're done. Because one of those cars is going to jump up and knock us out of here, right? We know Doug Foley's capable. We know Krista's capable. We certainly know Brittany's capable. And he said, I was prepared to be a cheerleader on Sunday. And he said, when it ended up that I got the race, I was really surprised to find that out. And when we get back to the Midwest, I don't know when we're going to have that many cars again, maybe Indy, St. Louis, hopefully, when we get into that part of the world, Norwalk, when the independents that don't have to travel too far to make those races, then I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see somebody else, highly touted, high horsepower, championship contending car to end up in the same position, because you get that many cars and it's inevitable.
Yeah, I had a good conversation with Neil Strasbaugh on Saturday night, and he talked about exactly this. Just looking at the entry list, right? Like the more cars are showing up, like, oh man, oh boy, that the likelihood that one of the regulars is not going to make it just goes up as the math increases. It just goes up. How about Dan Mercier? Like, I want to tip the cap to TJ Zizzo. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But Dan Mercier,
that's another one of the part-time cars that came and took a spot away
and went to the semis. Like, they were good. Like this Serge Blanchette. I texted Rob Wendland a couple of weeks ago. It's like, hey man, who's running that car now? And he's like, Serge Blanchette. I was like, and who's he? He's like, he runs Mercier's boats. He keeps his boats going. And I've given him the tune-up. And the guy is out there. I'm watching Serge on the starting line. And every time the wind light comes on, he's like surprised, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to us.
That happened.
I can't believe this is happening. Like, how am I doing this? I'm going rounds at the NHRA. It was amazing to watch. So great for those guys. Hopefully Dan will run more races. Sean Reed, going to the second round. Just some really good, interesting storylines. When 22 cars show up, you're going to mix it up. So, people are getting what they've always wanted with the NHRA right now.
Agreed. The Friday night weather conditions set certainly most of the field. And then Saturday morning was a bit of a struggle. There were not a lot of cars that made good, clean runs on Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, when everybody was going, okay, our race day combination, we're going to have to figure out something that'll go down the racetrack. There were a lot more full poles out there. But I think you knew going into Sunday that, nobody was going to run low ET at the event, that, the top speed of the event was going to be locked in because the racetrack was just so much hotter and the conditions were so much different. And now you have to race. If you're in qualifying and you made a good run in Q1, well, you can come up Friday night, take a swing at it. If you miss a little bit, you miss a little bit. But when you're on Sunday, you can't do that. You've got to go up with, what do we think we can win the race with, not necessarily what do you think we might be able to get away with. And so that ended up being some pretty good competition throughout the course of the day. And at the end of it, we end up with a couple of the usual suspects in the final round and a great final round.
Great final round. I do want to mention TJ Zizzo, right? Because it was the Cinderella story. Like you always say, right? 11:59. So far, so good. Ultimately, the clock struck 12 on TJ. But what are you going to do? He was the number one qualifier for the first time in his career at his home race. Hopefully everybody bought a can of Rust-Oleum. So happy for Mike Kern. Tobler's got that thing figured out, and they're going to run 3 more races. They're going to run Indy, They're going to run Norwalk. They're going to run Worldwide Technology Raceway down there in St. Louis. Limited schedule. It's amazing that they're able to do this, but when they show up, they got a car that can win. Hats off to TJ. Like, great job to that team.
Well, the number one qualifier was cool. Okay, first time that they've done it, and everybody was really jazzed about that. To me, that wasn't what they did. That wasn't the impressive part of what they did. They came out qualifying session number 1 and were low ET for the session. That's 3 little bonus points that they don't need, they don't care about, but somebody else didn't get them. And they were the first car down the track, or among the first cars down the racetrack, because it was their debut for the season, right? First round is set by points. So they went out there and went, okay, everybody, here you go. You can run 376. And then nobody got around. And then they came back Friday night where the conditions were better and people were picking up. And if I'm not mistaken, by the time they pulled up the starting line, they were 4th or 5th. I think they'd been bumped down. But because they'd earned the right to go last, they got to watch everybody. And then he came up back to the top. 73, which was low ET of the event, which made him the number 1 qualifier. And then they came back on Saturday morning when so many cars were struggling with the racetrack. Right, we saw more tire smoke Saturday morning in Q3 than the entire other weekend combined, and they ran low ET of that round too. So, if somebody comes out Friday night, takes a big swing at the moon, and ends up landing it and gets the number 1 qualifier, I mean, God bless you. You're going to remember that. You're going to keep the hat. It's going to be great. But being the number 1 qualifier, in my mind, wasn't what was impressive about Tony Zizzo and the team. It was the fact that they were low ET 3 of the 4 sessions, and then coming up in Q4. I didn't speak to either Mike or Ron, but my thought is they went up there and said, okay, let's find out, where can we go before we put our toes over the edge, because that's going to make a difference tomorrow. And they ended up puffing the tire. But 3 out of 4 sessions, they were low for the session. And that was a very, very impressive showing. It was also interesting. I had looked it up, but I wasn't going to mention it unless it happened, right? Because I'm kind of a big believer that, if you tell, hey, well, this guy's trying to do something special. Well, everybody's trying to do something special. I think it's a better story if you wait till after it happens and then say, okay, this is why that was extra special. I don't know how many people remembered that last year at the Route 66 Nationals, TJ went to the semifinals after qualifying 16. He took down Mike Salinas in the opening round and then ended up, as I said, going to the semifinal. And when I looked at that, I thought to myself, oh, man, I wonder if the racing gods are going, okay, TJ, remember last year? And especially when you look at the ladder, and he's got to run Tony Stewart first round, right? I mean, again, it's not like he qualified number 1. He's got to run me and you. He's got to run a car that finished 3rd in the world last year, and they're certainly capable. So I'm thinking a round 1 upset was a possibility. And what a story that would be, right? I mean, you qualified number 16 last year and won. Qualified number 1 this year, got beat by number 16. Didn't happen. And then he ended up bringing it up to the top end. So that kind of opened up the whole story. But no, they that team, the car looks good. They present very well. There's nobody if Route 66 was the first time you'd ever been to an NHRA race, you didn't look at TJ Zizzo's team and go, okay, who are these rookies? You looked at them, and I honestly believe their presentation is as good as anybody out there that's touring. That's the way the car looks, the way the uniforms are all nice, the way the guys present themselves, everybody doing their job on the starting line. Nobody's running around with their hair on fire. Nobody's panicking. So, yeah, if everybody bought Rust-Oleum this week, maybe we can get them to a couple more races. I haven't been to the Rust-Oleum store yet, but I'm going.
Yes, I will be ordering my Rust-Oleum to celebrate TJ Zizzo's number 1 qualifier. But Lonnie asked, why don't they run more races? Can't they get the all-volunteer crew to run more races? And it's a combination of things. They've got a business. They got an amazing high-level body shop. They've got to run that. That's part of it, the volunteer crew traveling. But it was a few years ago, Alan, and you can please put some more meat on the bones here. TJ was running more races. And they said, you know what? It's better to run fewer races at the best level that we can run, like we just saw, where they're contending to win races, than stretch out their limited inventory and go up there being at these races with less of a chance to do well.
Well, it kind of depends on what your goal is, right? If your goal is to just get out there and be there, then you can run the car on a conservative level and not hurt as many things, and hopefully not blow up things, and stretch what you've got to make more races. But if you want to go out there and be a legitimate contender, You simply have to push a little harder on everything, and that takes more budget. And the volunteer crew is a big thing as well. Like I think you said it was Lonnie asked a question. I don't know what he does for a living, but could you go to your boss and say, hey, is it okay if I take 10 weeks off this year because I want to go racing? Something they don't pay me for, but it's fun and I want to go do that. Could you do that? Either get away with it at your job, or could you financially make that possible? And at this point, I know at least a few of the guys that work on the team and what they do, and it's not possible either from an employment standpoint or from a financial standpoint, because as much as they love going to the races, you couldn't just turn away 10 paychecks a year to take the time to go racing. And before somebody says, well, wait a minute, you don't have to take all that. Well, you could just fly in Thursday night and fly out Sunday night. Well, you just added $1,000 per man to, the whole equation to get them in and out of there. So, the way they're doing it, I think is, smart. They obviously think it's smart because they're doing it. But if I had a top fuel car and I had a chance to go to 7 races a year and hope to qualify and, most likely be first round fodder unless something funky happened, or I could take that same budget, go to 3 races a year and be a legitimate contender, I would rather go contend.
I agree. No, I agree. And let's get a couple more regional TJ Zizzos out there in different regions of the country doing it the Zizzo way. That will be great. 4 races here and there at a high level. But
now, having said that, I think if somebody was willing to give TJ $5 million, that they would all go on tour.
Even 2.5, I think they might make. Five.
I'm in for 10%. 5.
Okay. Well, it's happening on WFO, Alan. So you got to give me I got to wet my beak a little bit too.
You get 10% of my 10%.
Done. Send it. That'll pay for something, right? Antron Brown going to be our guest on this show next week. Already confirmed. Antron going to be our guest on the show next week. First win of the season. I liked Brian Karate on the starting line. He goes, we need a win. I love that attitude. They wanted to announce, hey, we're here in 2024, and they went out there. They got a win. Of course, Langdon was going for his 3rd win. Langdon has been amazing over there. But Antron gets through Torrence, gets through Justin Ashley. Great day for Antron Brown, and Antron Brown gets to hold that 75 win placard at the end of it, including the Pro Stock Motorcycle wins, but nonetheless, 75, huge number.
No, it's a big deal. And, he's won at Route 66, both on the motorcycle and in the top fuel car. So, that place has been pretty kind to him over the years. Their last win was Indy last year. So it had been a while since they had plugged that thing back in. They've been running good. They just haven't quite got it done, with Justin Ashley doing what he's been doing. And this year with Sean Langdon doing what he's been doing, it ain't easy out. It ain't easy out there. And, getting one in, it's just for the entire team, right? Forget the points and forget the money and forget, it's good for the entire team. They've been working since September last year without getting to get a picture taken in the winner's circle. That bumps up everybody's morale a little bit. That keeps everybody focused on the task at hand a little bit. And any team will tell you, you need that every once in a while just to make sure you got everybody realizing that this is why we do this. And it's also interesting when you see a team that gets on a roll like Steve Torrence was a couple of years ago, where it seems like they're winning every week. But still, look, we cherish every one of these because you don't know when this will be the last one for a while, or when we get into that slump, or when we get into that. So, and they had a competitive car. They didn't back into it by any means. They had a good competitive car all day long.
Yeah, amazing. And we'll talk to AB a little bit more in detail about it next week. And of course, Matt Hagan going to join us tomorrow. Matt Hagan, along with Gaige Herrera and John Vincent, who sung the anthem. He's the Cubs national anthem singer. First time experiencing NHRA. If you're watching on PowerTube TV, that'll be available in our WFO Power Block on Thursday night, of course. But funny car. What can you say about the funny car category? It's just incredible. Like, the level of competition in funny car right now is insanity. It is incredible. Austin Prock, #1 qualifier, but top to bottom, Daniel Wilkerson, they had a tough event. And then he goes to the semifinals, and gets bested by John Force. John Force, this guy is the Force Racing is testing, by the way, out there with Brittany's car in Indy. That was in the chat section. But the guy's is he a freak of nature? Is he an example of what you can do if you put hard work and commitment into it at 75 years old? Guy making another final round. Hagan got him this time. Funny car is just insane. Jim Head, genius, takes out his, what did he call him? Apprentice. He comes up to me after, he goes, I called him apprentice. He goes, I had to win, otherwise I was in trouble.
That was funny. And then I thought, the guy's willing to play along a little bit. For anybody who, if you weren't there or you weren't following along on the audio cast, on Saturday morning in Q3, it was a struggle out there. A number of cars, as I mentioned earlier, were smoking the tires and having trouble getting down the racetrack. And Jim's car went. I remember 4 flat or 401. It wasn't like, world record setting, but it went. And I said, Jim Head's a genius. At which point, Aaron Brooks, who, along with Jim Head, are very good friends and who I know very well, we've got a great relationship, made some off-mic, offhand comment about what I said, at which point Joe corralled both of them and said, okay, wait a minute, let's put this on the record, guys. Where are we at here? And then they ended up having to race each other come Sunday. And I thought it was kind of a little fun, lighthearted moment between a couple of guys that, very, very serious competitors that have a lot of respect for each other that were kind of playing the game. But no, Jim had himself a good car out there on a hot, tricky racetrack. Was able to knock down a couple of win lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Came up short against Hagan in the semifinals, and Hagan versus Force. Hagan gets one back from the Pomona final round. Hagan has now won 2 in a row. Hagan's got his 51st victory. And I was going back and forth a little bit with someone on X yesterday. Hopefully everybody reposts on X. But he said that everybody was, cookie cutter in NHRA. And that's an opinion from like 20 years ago. Maybe. Have you met Matt Hagan? And he's like, oh, well, yeah, that's right, Hagan. Like, have you met J.R. Todd? And he's like, yeah, okay. And have you met Steve Torrence?
Bob Taskin.
There's nothing cookie cutter about any one of those people. Every one of them is this, crazy character. Caps is a professional driver owner, right? Napa representation. But Ron Capps, he's a heavy metal guy. He's out there with the greatest of the great rock bands of the world. There are no Blake Alexander. It's like this, good looking kid with a kind of a harsh sense of humor. He'll poke fun at you. He's like, we got so many interesting and intriguing characters battling it out in funny. There's nothing cookie cutter about any of these folks. But Hagan, the muscle man. And I have a report. He's bringing back the Fu Manchu. The goatee is coming back for New England.
All right. Well, that'll make him even more intimidating than he already is. He's had a good car all year. Last year he started off, if I'm not mistaken, he started off by winning Gainesville and won 3 of the first 6 or something like that. He was kind of off to the races. This year, he didn't start off quite as hot, but we're 6 races into the season. He's been to 3 final rounds. He's won 2 of them. So if there's anybody who thinks he's not going to be around contending all year long, you're just paying attention to what's going on out there. The other side of the spectrum that I think is pretty interesting is, you just mentioned Ron Capps, and those guys are struggling a little bit right now. In qualifying, they'll make a good run here and there. I know that they're working on some new clutch stuff and doing that kind of thing and trying to sort it out. But those guys right now, Dean Antonelli, for his history as a lead crew chief, and he spent a lot of time as the co-crew chief and the second in command of it. But from about the first time that he was a lead crew chief, which if I'm not mistaken was on Ashley Force's car, consistency has been his calling card. That car's going down to the stripe, 90% of the time, 85% of the time. They don't smoke, they don't shake, they don't make a whole lot of mistakes. They're going to the finish line. If you want to beat them, you got to beat them. And they seem to have lost the handle on that consistency a little bit right now. I know that they're working hard to try to find it back, but that's been one of the surprises to me is that car hasn't been as much in the mix as we expect it to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. But if what Dean and Ron, they've said it right from the very start of the year, they replaced their whole clutch pack. And when it's crunch time, I fully expect them to be there, right? Like, I don't want to say you have to sacrifice because they're trying to win every week. They're trying to win, but really they're trying to learn, Right now, they're trying to learn and figure things out and figure out the clutch pack, as I understand it. But that's a good question that we could ask Dean or Ron about in the near future. Dan says the cars are cookie cutter. I disagree. I don't. You got a Toyota, you got a Ford, you got a Camaro, you got a Dodge. Every manufacturer is represented. What other category has that? They have their own unique cues. But what makes them maybe slightly cookie cutter is aerodynamic necessity. Right? You're building a car for 335 miles an hour. They're going to kind of look the same, like rockets, they're pointing at the front and they're long. That's because of aerodynamics. And also, I go back and watch all those old videos, Alan. I'm as intrigued by it. The cars back in the day, except for like the first 10 years of funny cars, when everybody was kind of doing their own homebrew bodies. But in the late 70s, early 80s, look at the nostalgia scene. You had the Firebirds. All right, they were awesome. The Plymouth Arrow. Okay. And, that's pretty much it. Everybody was in their own unique versions of whatever it was they had. So, it wasn't endless different styles of funny cars back in the day either. And then, Bernstein brings out the Batmobile, changes things a little bit. But I'm pushing back against the cars being cookie cutter.
Well, they certainly don't have as much brand recognition as they did, as you said, back in the 70s. But back in the 70s, they were going 210 miles an hour, 220 miles an hour. So if that's what you like, then the Heritage Series has got a place for you, because they still, for the most part, look like that. And even the Heritage Series now, they're starting to get a little bit swoopier, a little bit more stretch, a little bit more squish, because performance. And drag racers are always going to do what they need to do for performance. But I do appreciate the fact that all the different manufacturers are involved, and you don't exactly need a spotter scope to know which one's a Toyota, which one's a Ford, which one's a Chevy, and which one's a Dodge. So I will take the performance. I will give up a little bit of brand recognition in order to take the performance, because I don't want the cars to go back to 220 miles an hour being top speed to me.
Right. And Dan pushes back, and I'm going to push back. What part of John Force's car is Chevrolet? The decals? And I will tell you the answer is all the engineering that designed it. That is a Chevrolet design by Chevrolet engineers, General Motors, in their own wind tunnels to come up with that shape. That was the newest when it was designed a few years back. How long ago was that, Reinhart? Like 5-6 years that Chevy brought out that new body style. And the Toyota engineers, their brain trust of super smart people, designed their body, the GR Super. They feel very proud about it. Same is true with Ford. They feel very proud about it. That's what it is. It's not a street car replica anymore. It is a high-level, refined piece of Chevrolet engineering that came from their engineers through the use of their wind tunnel time. And so that's what it is. That is Chevrolet. The product of their engineering team is what it's Chevrolet. And that engineering team gives information to the people who make street cars as well. But it is very much a product of Chevrolet, as I understand it.
It's certainly true that you can't go to a parts store at a Chevy dealership and order anything that would fit John's car. But if you really want to play that card, when you go to that Chevy parts dealership, how many parts can you order by part number that are the same as on Kyle Larson's Indy car? Or for that matter, his NASCAR Cup car?
Right.
Over time, the technology to build a race engine turns into race engines. And even in pro stock, there's a lot of people that talk about the fact that, they all have Chevy engines in them. No, they really don't. They all have DRCE engines. And DRCE stands for Drag Race Competition Engine. Is there a factory part number on some of this stuff? Yes, there is. But could you take a cylinder head off of Eric Anders' car and put it on a big block Chevy? Nope. Could you take a cylinder head off of one of the Dodge Pro Stock machines, put it on a Hemi? Nope. How about the crankshaft? How about? Nope. They are all purposely designed racing engines who have one thing to do: run really fast for a short period of time. And technology is going to continue to do that. I love the fact that the manufacturers are involved. I like the fact, if you really need that much brand recognition to enjoy your drag racing, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying if that's what you need, what do you think of Factory X?
Yes.
What do you think of Factory Stock Showdown?
Yep.
Because
There's your
those
factory
cars,
part.
showdown cars, are real assembly line cars. Factory X cars are not real assembly line cars, but when you look at the parts and pieces that they're required to use, you can walk through the staging lanes and you don't have any doubt in your mind which one of those is a Dodge, which one of those is a Chevy, which one of those is a Ford. And if that's what you're looking for, we have that as well. They just don't go 300 miles an hour.
And Dan says, uh-oh, we're chirping. You know, this is all playful back and forth on the air, and that's what WFO is all about, right? A little back and forth on the air.
We're debating. We're debating.
And you're right about Factory X. I've been to Jerry's shop and seen the body panels come from Chevrolet in a like a package, right? It has to be steel roof and quarters for that, because maybe Joe and Alan want to go out to a junkyard and create a shell and try to build one ourselves. Maybe we want to do that. We can do it with the steel roof and quarters. That was the plan. Nobody's really doing that. But it can be done, and factory blocks, factory parts and pieces throughout Showdown and Factory X. And so that is out there, but it's not in Nitro. Not in Nitro, can't. Going 330 miles an hour. All right, other winners. Eric Dillard, back-to-back with the car. Jose Gonzalez, Eric Dillard wins in Congruity Pro Mod. Great weekend, except for the thing that happened on Sunday morning early.
Well, and Pro Mod, you talked about Top Fuel. Let's talk about Pro Mod. The reigning world champion was a spectator. Frank Manzo didn't make the cut. But Manzo and Morgan and the team didn't make the cut. Castellano.
You were correct.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're blaming
didn't
Frank.
Make the cut.
Sounds like you're blaming Frank a little bit there.
I'm not blaming Frank. Come on. But that was the level of competition and the car count that we had out there in the Pro Mod series, and that's great. I sent Dillard a congratulatory note on Sunday night, and he said, "Man, they saved me." He said, "I wasn't very good. The car was really good, but we'll take it." And and again, the level of competition that's out there right now is unbelievable. I wish we could figure out a way to get a couple of turbo cars back out there, because I think the class misses something when it doesn't have all the variety. We've only got one nitrous car out there. I'd love to see at least another one of those, and I'd love to see a couple of turbo cars. But the level of competition out there right now is pretty stout. And for Eric Dillard, I guarantee you, every time his phone rings right now, he's going, "Oh, it's not Jose. Oh, it's not Jose." Waiting for Jose to call him again and go, "You know what? I'm not going to be able to make Reinhart. Can you help?" "Yes, sir. I'll be there. I'm ready to go." But no, he, good competition from top to bottom, and they definitely earned it.
And, Eric has had success before, right? But he was super happy in the winner's circle getting it done. Jimmy Ronzello in Super Stock, first-time winner. Pretty amazing. Julie Bierman, Stock Eliminator, Pontiac Power, first-time winner. I love what she said in the winner's circle. She like Pontiac Power, had that heads up against RL, against the Rocket. Yeah. In a battle of 400 Pontiacs, and like that is so cool. Richard Hughes in Supercom, second win. Jeremy Mason, he's got a whole bunch of wins, right? He's got a big pile. Dalton Deffenbaugh, young kid out there, got his first win ever at Route 66 in a divisional race, goes out there, backs it up in Super Street at the National. Just amazing. And Larry DeMars in Wright Trailers, top sportsman, the Lucas Oil Series, just amazing. Such great competition all weekend long, and they were all very they were taxed but appreciated at the end of it all.
Well, I thought Julie Bierman's win was really cool for a couple of reasons. One, she's been doing it a long time. And to finally close the deal, I thought was pretty cool. And you mentioned Randy Lynn. She also beat Dan Fletcher along the way. She had another first-time finalist in the other lane, Johnny Diekema. So we knew somebody in a classic muscle car was going to get their first one. Unfortunately for Johnny, something happened to his car and it quit out there about 400 feet. But, just everything about the event. We got it finished. We got to do the Parade of Champions. We got to, every time we don't do that, I just hate that. It galls me that we don't get a chance to bring the sportsman racers up, give them that minute in the spotlight, give them that minute on the stage. I completely understand why it has to happen, but I just hate it when we miss that. And so the fact that we got to do that was pretty cool. I also, Dave Van Tine coming out there winning for the first time with Top Fuel Motorcycle being an official category, won an official Wally for it. And the Dragon drivers were awesome as well. They put on a heck of a show. There wasn't, other than the Friday fog that made us start a little late and run a little late. I didn't think there was really a bad thing about the event. It was a great event, and it was a classic if the first time you experienced NHRA was last weekend at Route 66 and you went, yeah, that's not for me, then okay, I get it. Thanks for giving us a shot, but we're not for you. I think anybody that was out there, if that was their first experience with NHRA, I think they have to come back.
Yeah, definitely. J.R. Todd winning the Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge. Justin Ashley winning another Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge. Greg Stanfield beating his kid right in front of the whole world in the Rod Shop car in Factory X. Greg Anderson winning the call out, and Gaige Herrera undefeated on the season. Gaige going to join us tomorrow on the show. Pretty amazing. I liked how Gaige was, in my opinion, excited that Matt Smith was running so well, right? Like, oh, all right, somebody's fast. Somebody else is fast now. And Matt kind of got bounced before the final round, but everybody's on notice that Matt Smith is here to play. Got a new clutch system, took out the old dinosaur, he called it, and is already very quick. That 102 60 foot, how real was it? I don't know. He was fast. He was the number one qualifier.
Yeah, the first time Gaige hadn't been the number one qualifier since I think Denver last year. The class needs more competition, and I think everybody knows that. I love Gaige. I'm not wishing anything bad on Gaige. I'm not, but as I said with Pro Stock a couple minutes ago, it's just not as much fun for the fans when you show up knowing here's who's going to win. You've got to have the competition, and Matt Smith has obviously been working at it. I think that when he gets his stuff perfected, or at least a little closer, and maybe he figures he's at that point now, then they're going to start cloning it and putting the other bikes to come out of his trailer. So we should see even more really fast motorcycles out there.
Absolutely. No, it's going to be great. It's going to get better and better. Like that's the whole thing about all of this. In the interest of fair reporting, like people like, oh man, this show is just a total homer. Which we are. I'm a cheerleader for the sport. I openly say it. I look at the positive, not the negative, as best as I can. We did have some negative though. We had the fog, which was, ma nature, not our fault. We didn't have that timing system issue with the speed on the right-hand lane. I talked to Austin about it. He tried to explain to me. It just bounced off my head. I couldn't understand any of that, but it did not ultimately affect the outcome of the race. It was a little bit. We tried. We put our effort in, and then we had to just go. And then I hear the folks on .tv had some audio issues, which we were fighting some things out there. When you go to a facility once a year, things are a little different. But it's that or not have the event. I am excited that we had the event. And we just lost Alan Reinhart. He was disgusted by me revealing the one negative thing that we had. No, we lost him on the deal. All right, guys, put your comments in the comment section. Put your comments in the comments section. Let's see what you've got to say out there. I want your opinions. Final thoughts on the Gerber Collision and Glass Route 66 NHRA Nationals presented by Peak Performance. And we did a lot of social media out there as well. Got to get up close and personal with the drag and drive cars. In the meantime, though, I always ask you to share the show. Look at me. I appreciate it. You are our only real source of marketing and growth. We want you to do the word of mouth. Hey, I'm a drag racing fan. Do you watch WFO? That's a great place to get all kinds of inside information and become listeners. And what happens then is after you spend enough time listening to the show and we don't drive you away, hopefully, right? It usually takes a couple weeks. If we don't drive you away, then you want to know even more. Look, he's back. I was just getting ready to say goodbye, and then you just you hung the phone up in our face.
Poof.
Poof.
And I went, what the heck was that?
Was there smoke?
And so, no.
Okay. It wasn't an Aaron Stanfield level event.
No, it was not an Aaron Stanfield level event.
Okay. I was just about to sign off and say goodbye and happy birthday, and thank you so much, and talk next week.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. It was fun as always. If you are anywhere in the vicinity of Maple Grove, there's going to be a big regional out there at MG this weekend. Should be a fun one. Ton of cars out there. I think the weather's going to be nice, and I'm headed that way tomorrow. So if you just can't get through Memorial Day without some drag racing or you're anywhere near Maple Grove, come out and check us out.
House of Chaos with Alan Reinhart. I absolutely love it. Say what's up to Kid Chaos and the captain for me.
I will definitely do that, Joe.
All right. Be good, Alan. Again, happy birthday. And we'll see you next week. WFO.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
There it goes. Alan Reinhart, the voice of the NHRA, with us here each week on WFO Radio. And, Apple Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud. There's an audio-only version of this show. That's how we started. I used to do AM talk radio. That is my original roots. I'm actually going to be on a podcast later on tonight, an audio-only podcast with Phil DeMontmollin And TJ Reeves, does anybody in our audience remember TJ Reeves from XM Sports Nation? Was the morning show host. We used to go to the Indy 500 each year when we were at XM Satellite Radio together. They have started a podcast called Announcer Schedules. If you follow the Announcer Schedules X handle on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, they, tweet out a lot of, like which broadcast team is covering each sport. And Phil DeMontmollin was a big part of WFO Radio and still is. He's fam, right? They were getting ready for the Indy 500. They have invited me on their audio-only podcast. I encourage all of my audience to go listen because I want them to have a big response when they have me on, so they'll have me on more, right? See how that works? And then maybe I can siphon off some of their audience. That's how it works. But appreciate everybody listening to the audio-only, or if you're on PowerTube TV, watching there and the WFO Power Block on Thursday nights on the PowerTube TV. And, it's one of those apps that you download. But also, we have our Patreon listener group. This is like you pay. This is it. You pay. And it felt so weird early on about this, but now it's kind of become a normal thing out there in the culture. It's like VIP Listener Club is really what it is. And people can join at one of many levels. Some have selected the highest level, and we greatly appreciate them. Many have selected the lowest level, and we appreciate them. And everybody gets the same stuff. And what do you get? A little Monday motivation that hasn't worked this week. We do a show on Monday to kind of set the table. That's just me to direct to the audience, setting the table. Although last week we had a celebrity VIP come in for Monday motivation. You get to watch the recording session for the Ignition podcast live. And you also get to see it. That's right, when I post it. Oops. And that's a big deal too. And most importantly, if you go to patreon.com/WFO radio, I think one of our best benefits of the show for all the fans of Pro Stock out there is the Hear It From Heiner, Get Biofuel Pro Stock Crew Chief show, where Michael Heiner, who is like Pro Stock lifer, he has worked in NASCAR, he has worked all over, he debriefs after every race or previews each race and gives and shares his opinions on many topics. We occasionally talk a little Formula One as well. He's a big fan, as am I. But what's really going on in Pro Stock? What's really going on in Pro Stock? The kind of stuff that maybe it's not healthy for 10,000 people out there to know about it. But for the WFO Patreon VIPs, yeah. So if you sign up for a year, I'll even send you a free t-shirt in addition to your stickers and your patches and all the swag. And I had someone text me the other day, and it made me feel really great, that he is a member of Patreon for several different people. That's where he's getting his content. And he said to me that we're doing the most. And I thought, thank God. Oh, thank goodness, because I do genuinely wake up and make sure that we're doing the job for all of our sponsors, like including our Patreons, the people who make it possible that you see in the logos on the screen. Total Seal Piston Rings, FTI Performance Transmissions and Torque Converters, Foggett, Bernie's, CWT Industries, and Phillips Connect, plus samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Guys, if you're looking for an education in this field, there is no better than samtech.edu. Rodax, coffeeandgrills.com, the hot sauces, the spice rubs, 817-924-6821. Marvin Rodak, always a part of the WFO universe. Order some coffee. Experience the Rodax coffee. It will change your life. Genuinely, you will love it so much, so much. And finally, Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School and the Dragster Adventure at frankhawley.com. Talking to the folks at Frank Hawley, everything they do to put people who are inexperienced behind the wheel of a race car, it makes a great gift. Go to frankhawley.com and see all the wonderful things they've done. And to reinforce their message is just such a big deal for us. Really appreciate Frank Hawley and Lana Hawley and everybody out there. WFO merch is on sale right now. It's like 35% off. You can get a $16 WFO radio t-shirt. The first thing we do every show is put up the TeePublic store link. That's the first thing we do. And then more often than not, I forget about the merch and don't tell everybody. Well, right now, I'm going to put the merch link in the chat section right now. Go there. We've got some really cool shirts, the WFO round logo, the Miami Hollywood Speedway retro shirt, PBIR retro shirt, Morris Motorsports. Fans of Dave and Sue Morris, you want to get the Morris Motorsports gear, you definitely want to go to the WFO store. Look at Sue with her Wally. the Morris Motorsports gear is all available in the WFO store. And right now is the time to do it. Get yourself a mug, get yourself a shirt. They sell wall tapestries. Why on earth would you ever get that? But they sell them. If you want a giant WFO logo on your wall, you can sell them. And really, this is all me stalling for everybody out there. Let's see. No smoke and mirrors. Here, it's all real. Keep the amazing content coming, guys. Love it, says Henry G. Thank you very much, Henry. Yeah, guys, I had a lot of people come up to me in Chicago, a lot of them, and say different and interesting things. Like one guy likes how I'm, flying the plane back here. He's like, I'm always watching how you control the plane. One day I'm going to show you behind the scenes. I got a screen here. I got a screen here. The camera's here. Got internet over here, watching what's going on. That's why I'm not always making eye contact. I wish I could. Like, I wish I had somebody, a producer over there, like back in my radio days, Tommy Noodles was over there doing all this stuff, screening the phone calls. I'm doing it all myself. And that's why sometimes there are mistakes, but I do my best. And that is also what gives me the flexibility to do shows as often as we do and have the guests that we have, because we're doing it all ourselves for the most part. Giovanni in Miami helps out a lot, posting the Ignition Show. Patrick, the webmaster, Steve Brenwell. We got a team of people behind the scenes helping out. But when it comes to the actual show, I'm the guy. I'm doing it all myself here, which is actually good. Tomorrow we got Matt Hagan. We got John Vincent, who is a brand new NHRA fan, like green as can be, experienced 20 minutes of nitro and is hooked. He called me on Monday. He's like, Joe, you don't understand. Like, this has changed me. And so I was like, come on the show, please. And he is the Cubs anthem singer. And so let's see. McLaren F1, one in Miami. Absolutely. I was watching on television and then backed it up. Could it be that there's some competition in Formula One? Let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay? Saturday's tricky track had me worried, but Sunday's close racing showed me that NHRA works it out. Well, this is hard, man. Like, that's the thing. Everybody wants the cars to just go down the racetrack. But Dickie Venables told me once, he goes, it's a miracle that they ever go down the track at all, even one time. It's a miracle. It's that hard. It's so hard. And you show up to a racetrack that hasn't had nitro cars on it in a year, and you got to guess and figure out how to beat the other guy. There's a learning process, and you got to learn as a fan to enjoy that process. It's not about car goes down, number comes up. It's a great number. That's not what it is. It's the learning process. And by the time Sunday came around, race day, they had learned. So those runs that didn't get down, maybe they weren't so entertaining. You get this shock of nitro. You get the feel, the smell, the fury. You get all that stuff. But you're watching the teams learn. Like, we call it qualifying. And so you're expecting these great numbers. But what if we called it practice? Then you'd maybe have lower expectations. In the end, the race was awesome. And being there is awesome. And that's why. Monica says, great weekend of racing. Happy to see the two previous DSR racers get wins on such a special weekend. Bringing up Don Schumacher. It was a big bummer. Tony didn't get out of the first round, but that's competition. The Don Schumacher celebration of life. I want to commend Brian Loans. Brian did a great job with a very difficult and challenging situation, putting into words in just the right amount of time how meaningful the life and career of Don Schumacher was to the sport where we choose to make our living. Would we be able to make a living in the sport of drag racing without the effort of Don Schumacher? Unknown. The time that he came in and ascended to the level that he achieved, it was so important. Winston going away, Coca-Cola coming in, and he changed the sport from, whatever it was during the days of, cigarettes and endless money because they weren't allowed to, a business that could sustain itself with the hospitality. And he did so much. The machine shop, coming up with a system that the central organization sold parts and pieces to the individual teams and invoiced them. And there was so much that has never been spoken about Don Schumacher. He was a tough man. If you worked for him, paying you got to deliver. And they did deliver. And I thought about Don a lot this weekend, and I miss him. We weren't great friends. Ron Tobler was great friends with Don Schumacher, and I had a great conversation with Ron about Don, and he says he just misses him, and that's it. The whole sport misses him, but such is life. This is it, and we're just going to carry Don Schumacher with us and what he was all about. And sometimes tough love is part of it. And look at the results. You can't argue with the results, right? So, we miss you, Don. That was tremendous. Mike, don't we all just love drag racing? We do. But we have to share our love and our passion. The sport needs to grow. How in the world does NASCAR have a $7.7 billion media contract and we don't have one worth $1 billion, right? The sport needs to grow. That's why I get aggressive, chirping against the people who are negative minded. When Erica Enders decides to say something that's a little interesting, that's a little off script, that's a little controversial, don't get mad at Erica. Appreciate it that she's taking some risk to her already, stellar career and reputation. She's going to get out there and have a little fun. Chirping is the word. Clapping back is another new modern term. Invite your friends to watch races with you. Showcase what this sport is. Get out there, wear your gear. I can't say we as NHRA because I'm an independent contractor. I work for Castello Media. Castello Media puts on WFO Radio and various other programs and does things in the local community here in South Florida. Castello Media provides an announcer for Homestead Miami Speedway, for Fastlane Friday. We have different things. One of the clients of Castello Media is the National Hot Rod Association that provide a guy to be the announcer, and that guy is me, right? So I don't work for the NHRA, but I love the NHRA. I love the NHRA going back to 1980 when I went there with my dad. I do not control anything. I can often, I offer suggestions and, who knows where it goes, right? But I don't think anybody out there does more with what they have than the people behind the scenes at the NHRA. Like if you could see what is actually going on, right? When the clock isn't working and Austin has to go down there and fix it and he's cutting fiber and he's, welding fiber optics. Like, how do you do that under the gun? This guy's in his 20s. He's a great kid. He was on Life's a Drag once. You can go find the interview with Austin Hayward. The people behind the scenes who are working so hard because they love drag racing and they want to see this thing grow. NASCAR, we saw it grow. They have a lot of people. They have a lot of staff. They got a lot going on behind the scenes. They got a lot of manpower. We need an NHRA day, a day where we tell everybody, this is the day that you wear your gear to work when you're not at the track. When people come up to you and say, what is that hat you're wearing? What is that? Force. What's Force? There's a lot of people that don't know what John Force is. Well, he's the, greatest drag racer ever. He's won 16 championships. He's a crazy character, man. He's a wild man. He's a crazy character. He's a lot of fun to watch. And remember that show Driving Force? And do a little legwork for the sport that you love. Well, why should I do the legwork for the sport that I love, Joe? Like, it's not my responsibility. No, it's not. But the fans of the Cubs, I went to Wrigley the other day, and it's in their heart so much that that's what they do. Cubs fans want you to go to Wrigley, to experience Wrigley, to feel the feeling that they have. And drag racing fans should do the same thing with their friends. They should do it. They should recruit. They should go early, very early on a Sunday morning and knock on strangers' doors. Don't do that. We know that's probably not the best way to bring people into the fold. My buddy, Frisky, he was out there. What No Way. Speaking of which, Sean, the What No Way guy, was out there, and this guy's working his butt off. Loving drag racing. Loving NHRA drag racing. Richard, thanks for another great show, Joe. Share the show. Sharing the show is one way, and then I will do my best to keep them entertained. What is it? It's been an hour and a half. We're on the air, an hour and a half long show. Way too long for today's standards. Way too long. The longest show you're supposed to do nowadays, all these kids out there, if you do the show for 40 seconds, you start to lose their attention, right? Like, you really have 7 to 11 seconds to really connect with someone in 2024. If you can keep their attention for longer than 25 seconds, you got a shot. You know, maybe I'm a relic of the old school world where there are certain people that want to know more, that want to actually get below the surface of something. Not everything can be a 7-second reel or TikTok. It just can't. And maybe that's why, you know, like I don't want to be critical and I don't want to do social commentary, but it does seem we're in a period where people know less, certainly less in depth. Maybe they know about more in terms of topics, but less detail about each specific topic. That's what WFO is all about. You're going to learn more about NHRA drag racing than maybe you want to know. And then when you check out NHRA Insider and Shake and Bake and Life's a Drag and Between the Slicks and Monday Morning Racer and all of these different shows that are out there, you're going to know everything. And then you can tell me what they say, because I can't keep track of every one of these shows now. And there's a moment that happens on every one of them that I need to know about. And fortunately, I've got people that tell me that kind of stuff. Imagine what the driver feels like when you're feeling it in the stands flowing through your body. Right. Sitting on top of that J.R. Todd, sitting on top of that 12,000 horsepower engine. There's nothing like it in the world. I know it's the month of May. The Indy 500 is this month. Another great American thing. And I've been there and I've experienced it. We got Hagan tomorrow. We got Gaige tomorrow. We got John Vincent tomorrow. It's the month of May. We'll be covering it. We'll be talking about it. But NHRA drag racing, man. WFO.